Hey there, welcome to a brand new episode of Muzikxpress. My name is Twan, and in this week's vlog you will see my interview with Nick Muir about the Bedrock classic Heaven Sent. But before we start with the interview, please make sure to subscribe to my channel, and very important, also make sure to click the bell button, because then you will get a notification the next time a new vlog is online. Alright, here it is, the story behind Heaven Sent by Bedrock, my interview with Nick Muir. Enjoy! Nick Muir is a well-known name in the music scene for many years already. He's been releasing music under lots of different names since the 1980s. In my previous interview with Nick, he already shared the story behind For What You Dream Of, a track he did together with John Digweed under the project name Bedrock. For this week's vlog I spoke to Nick about another massive Bedrock classic, Heaven Sent, which came out in the year 1999. My first question to Nick was how he and John came up with the project name Bedrock.
Right, well, when we were writing For What You Dream Of, and we finished it, then we realised we had to come up with some kind of an artist name. And so we looked at each other, I don't know. And who was there at the time? There's Left Field and, Underworld, and so, Orbital. So it's that kind of a name that we were looking for. I remember one of John's suggestions was Odd Job. And I'm thinking, well, where did that come from? And he said, well, it's an odd job. Yeah. Okay, well, maybe not. We'll bear it in mind. But actually, Bedrock was a party that John ran down on the south coast. It was, kind of, like I say, late rave days, I suppose, and Bedrock was one of those type parties.
So it's not involved with the Flintstones?
No, nothing to do with the Flintstones. It is actually, I believe, Bedrock, I think where John got it from was, I think Bedrock was a club in Chicago. And its unique selling point was that there was a volcano in the middle of the club, which they kind of made, and it actually used to erupt, like not an actual volcano, I understand, but it was like a special effect as part of the sort of fun. Yeah. And they called the club Bedrock, and it had a volcano in it, I think. Right. So John borrowed that and used that for his parties, and when we finished For What You Dream Of, I thought, well, the thing is, people will know you from those parties, and also, it's pretty sort of short, snappy, to the point, and,
Sounds cool.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah.
So, it's been Bedrock ever since.
Yeah, good. So did you guys have a plan or idea already when what kind of track Heaven Sent should become when you both went into the studio?
Well, John did say that he wanted something that would be big, and I don't think he necessarily meant, just big in terms of sales, but he just wanted it to sound big, wanted it to have like a big hook, wanted it to be a very present record. He wanted it to make a statement, so that was the idea of the sound of the record. What was happening through the 90s seemed to me, the tempos of records when we started in early 90s, it was 120, 121, something like that, and then through the 90s it gradually just seemed to go up, and I remember we were running at 123 for about 2 years, and then that went up to 127, and we were there for another, or around there for another 3 or 4 years, and then just before the millennium it just started to lift off again. And I think, I can barely believe it now when I listen to Heaven Sent. That's up around 133, 134, something like that, which now, actually things are starting to quicken up now, and that doesn't sound as fast as it did, but for many years in the noughties, we were making tracks around 124, 125. But now it's going up from there. But in those years when we were making tracks at that speed, and then I listened to Heaven Sent, I was like, I used to think, oh my God, I couldn't possibly play that, But now it doesn't sound so fast anymore. It sounds, a bit more in keeping with what's going on now.
Yeah. So, what can you tell us about the production process of Heaven Sent?
Well, I had a new studio at that point. I bought myself a little flat down in South London in Wimbledon, and this flat had a loft room, up in the ceiling there, and I did my best to make that into a writing room, studio room. But again, Pat, who owned the studio that I first met John in, he moved nearby, and he'd bought this old gymnasium it was, and he said, "Hello Nick, I'm going to make that into a studio. Do you want to have a programming room there?" And I'm like, yeah, because it was kind of right near where I lived. He was building it from the ground up, and he needed me in there. He needed somebody in there so he could start showing a bit of income and start paying the loans that he'd taken out to build the studio back. And so, super convenient for me. It's just a bike ride away, and he'd treated it nicely. The sound treatment and in there was, yeah, that's right. It just he knew what to do. It's it wasn't an expensive job that he did on it, but it was a really good job. He just knows, he's a studio builder. He knows what to do, and so I had that room, and I also had a little bit more equipment by then. I had bought some more synths and, had it all racked up nicely. And so we were I was feeling pretty good about the recording studio programming space. And John decided that we were going to do Heaven Sent. And so I went in there and just said, "Look, Nick, just come up with a big track. That's what we need." And I'm listening to this, and I'm listening to a few other things, kind of trance. So you've got to remember that Paul van Dyk was really big news then, and we knew him. And do you remember For an Angel?
Of course.
Massive track and very influential for that kind of sound. And the thing about those tracks is they had a hook, they had a kind of a big kind of signature, a theme to them. John wanted the theme, and so I sat down and started playing around with various ideas and came up with that hook that you can hear on Heaven Sent. And one of the things I did to try and make it sound big, I can remember thinking, well, let's just go to town on this. So I would play the riff, then I would sample that riff, then I'd play it on another keyboard, then I'd sample that, then I'd layer them together, and then treat them, then sample it back, then play the theme again on octave lower on another keyboard, and gradually keep going bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
It's pretty complicated.
It's not that it's complicated. It's just that you do it like a bunch of times to get that sound. It's like what ABBA did when they were producing. I can remember them saying that they had double track vocals and backing vocals. They said, that makes it sound really big. Let's just do it on all the instruments.
Yeah.
And so they would double track the piano, the bass, the guitar, everything.
Yeah.
And so you end up getting that, massive sound. Also Enya, that Irish singing.
Float.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then how did they get that sound? Is they'd record her singing, but they'd overdub it 200 times. 10cc with I'm Not in Love, that's the same thing. It's 100 overdubs,
I think I read that Michael Jackson also used to do that, and his own backing vocals and everything, and to make it sound like bigger.
Yeah. Quincy Jones has the record for the most 24 track machines hooked up at one time, which is 25, I think. They had 25 24 track machines going.
Wow.
One for just the vocals, one for just the brass. That's, But you have to be careful with it because otherwise, it can get a bit
too much
noisy.
Yeah.
But if you want something to sound big, then make it sound big. Produce it so that it does. And that's what I tried to do with Heaven Sent.
Yeah. So for Heaven Sent, what equipment did you use for that one?
Well, again, it was mostly the samplers. I did have mate of mine had given me this Yamaha CS60. The CS80 is the iconic Vangelis thing that he did the Blade Runner soundtrack on, which is like the big flagship Yamaha 80s polyphonic expensive synth. The CS60, which is the one I had, was the kind of the sort of next model down, not as expensive, but still, same kind of circuitry. And somebody I knew had one of these, and I believe at one point it got flood damaged, right? And so I took it to the synth service centre in London and got him to have a look at it. He did the best that he could, but it never quite sounded quite right. But that made its way onto Heaven Sent, and some of the effects that I used on Heaven Sent were coming from the synth, and they sound the way they do because the circuits are ever so slightly bent out of shape, you know what I mean? And some of those, you will hear those kind of weird effects going, stuff like whales in the background. That's all from the CS60.
Ah, cool.
Which I've since sold, which is a shame. Maybe I shouldn't have done, but
And you still have the other equipment, most of it, or?
No, not so much. I've got various bits and pieces which I just don't plug in. Occasionally I think, well, I better plug something in, see if I can get a nice big analog sound and all that. And I do it, and then as soon as I plug it in, I remember why I don't bother anymore.
Yeah.
So I know what people mean. VSTs, the soft synths, they can sound a bit glassy, a bit kind of brittle, And if you've got a nice big fat analog synth, all right, yeah, okay, I get it. It sounds, big and fat and nice. But if you're careful and you pick the right soft synths, you can get a great analog sound. You can get close enough.
Yeah.
So I don't tend to plug that stuff in anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I used the JV1080, the Roland, which is like a rack mount synth, and I thought that was great, actually, really great synth. I still got it, and it still works fine, solid as a rock. You can pick them up for hardly anything, really. I think you could probably get one for 200-300 euros. They're great. They're absolutely great. They're a bit fiddly to program, It's like trying to do it through the letterbox, But man, the sound of it is superb, I think.
Okay. So when Heaven Sent was like kind of done, did John test the track a lot in the club before it was like really finally finished?
We've always done that. He'll get you don't have to do it these days, but him and Sasha always had acetates made, and John would invariably do that and take it around with him, and he had the luxury of playing in other countries and on other systems, and I think he could see whether or not it was doing what he thought it would do. But everybody who heard Heaven Sent knew what it was. It's a big progressive trance, announcement track with intent, and John, and it has that big build up to the riff, and of course John would construct a set around it, so he'd be playing for an hour, 2 hours, and then when he thought it was a good time, he'd maybe drop Heaven Sent. And of course, I can remember being in Heaven, the club where Bedrock used to take place. He put a party on every month for several years. It was like being a 4-year-long party, actually, I have to be honest. But I can remember being in the club And I think I was in one of the back bars just talking the usual shit that I always talk that you do in clubs. And I can remember hearing the track go on, and that one particular night when it was still new and the riff came in, it was like somebody had scored a goal, you know. That's exactly what it sounded like, yeah. And I was like, oh wow, you know,
I did a good job.
Yeah, well, it was a moment, you know, and I didn't realise that, you know, you kind of think, oh yeah, it's a track and it does this and it sounds pretty good and all the rest of it. But then John played it and got that reaction.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Yeah. So did it need like a lot of changes, or like when he was testing it out, or was it like finished like straight away?
Look, I've never been quick, really, to be honest. But I wouldn't say that it was a difficult job to finish it though, but it did need a bit of dressing up, yeah? It's like, what makes those tracks from that era what they are is the fact that there is, you know, there's a certain amount of sound design, and you know, there's a certain amount of work to make it sound produced, and you know, one of the reasons that track sounds the way it does, I had a mixing disc, a Yamaha O2R, which is like a, you know, one of those digital type of, it was a very popular unit, the O2R. It was like, you know, cost $4 or $5 grand, which for us was quite a lot of money, but you know, it did everything that we wanted it to do. And I think I had it set up with a load of compression and mix. John Gray, who's a mix engineer friend of ours, who used to work with quite a lot, he came in and ran the track through the disc as it was set up, and it had like loads of really, you know, severe compression, and he ran the track like that without changing anything, and it just had a sound, you know. He said it was like the compression was really sort of dragging, and that's kind of pulling the sucking thing going on, and he had the ears and the good sense, John Gray did, to realise, oh no, that's the sound.
Yeah.
Let's just, whereas a lot of people go, oh no, there's too much compression and everything, let's just change it all. Yeah. John just kind of left it, but then, you know, compensated, and that's one of the reasons the track sounds the way it does, is because it's got a load of compression that just happened to be there by accident.
Yeah.
You know?
So do you have any idea how long it took you to finish the entire track?
Oh.
Because you said you're not quick.
No,
so
but
like weeks or months.
It's never months, but it's always weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, I say it's never months. We have taken longer, but it's almost like, I feel like producing. It's almost like these things have a gestation period. Do you understand? Like, you know, they develop. You're sitting there and you're trying to encourage it, and you're chucking things at it, see what will happen, and then when it decides that it's ready, then it'll start to sort of sound like more like the finished article. And that, if that starts to take longer than about 3 or 4 weeks, then it kind of changes. So, you know, I would say that track was done in about a month.
Okay, still not bad.
No, that's fine.
Yeah. So is there also a story behind the title?
Well, it's to do with the fact that Bedrock parties were at heaven, and it's just, you know, and something is heaven sent. That's a English phrase just for something that's like a gift from the gods, and it has the name of the club in there, and just seemed to fit quite nicely. So
yeah.
That was John's. He named that track.
Nice. So in the previous interview we spoke about For What You Dream Of, which is featured in the movie Trainspotting, but also Heaven Sent made it into a movie. The song was used in the American film Groove, which came out in the year 2000. John does play himself in the movie, so I guess he managed to make sure that Heaven Sent was used in the movie.
I think that's probably part of the deal.
Yeah.
Although, don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So of course, John was playing the track in his set, and I know Sasha put Heaven Sent on his Global Underground Ibiza Mix compilation. Do you remember which other DJs did support the track?
No, it's the short answer to that question. It looked, like I say, that you'd have to call that track progressive trance, really. And so I'm sure that all the guys who are around, John would have sent it to Paul Van Dyke, and Paul would have played it.
Yeah.
And the guys who were around at that era, the German guys, the German trance guys, you know, John kind of knew them all, and still, you know, that's part of his thing. He kind of knows a lot of people as friends in the business, and so, you know, they send him stuff, and so when he's got something, then he'll pay it forward and send them. But he, you know, the thing is, Heaven Sent, we had record company backing. Pioneer ran a record label which they started up, and Heaven Sent, as part of the Bedrock label, was signed to Pioneer in the beginning of its career, and so it had some serious promotion behind it.
Oh, good. See, Heaven Sent made it to the number 35 position of the UK singles chart.
And number 27, I think.
Really?
I thought so, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's 27, 28.
Oh, I believe you.
That's
so, but did you expect the track to be coming like in the charts, or was it like a complete surprise for you?
It was a nice surprise, but like I say, we had some quite high-level promotion, professional guys who worked with big record companies, who had all the connections, you know, and were no doubt paid handsomely for their services, doing a very professional job on getting the track heard. And so I didn't expect it, but it was, you know, it was good when it happened.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So do you have any idea how many copies have been sold of Heaven Sent, like during the years?
Oh God, that's such a brilliant question.
Yeah.
How do you even?
I mean, it was like on a lot of mixed compilations and like other CDs.
Do you know what? I haven't got a clue.
Oh,
and that is terrible. I really should know. But I mean, there's no way that it's not, you know, in the millions. I wouldn't say.
Yeah.
It's like by the time everything has been accounted for.
Yeah, check with your accountant.
Well, I'd prefer not to think about all that at the moment.
So yeah, besides For What You Dream Of and Heaven Sent, you guys also did release tracks such as Voices, Emerald, Forge and Santiago as Bedrock. The last Bedrock release was in 2005. Do you think we can ever expect a new Bedrock track, or do you guys focus more on releases under your own name?
Well, what happened was that because Bedrock became the label, which, you know, John decided at one point that he wanted Bedrock to be his record label, and for various reasons, I think that was fair enough. I think he thought to have an artist releasing as Bedrock on the Bedrock label would be a bit confusing.
Yeah.
And so what we do now is, if we release something original, is John Digweed and Nick Muir. And if we do a remix, it's John Digweed and Nick Muir. So, and I release under my own name. And if John needs production services or remixing done, then, you know, he's still loyal enough to do that with me. So that's how it is.
Yeah, okay, good. So yeah, you also do music for film and TV. Can you tell a bit more about that?
I know people who work for production companies and who will need a little bit of music. My next project is something which will be shown on the BBC, which is like somebody reading a story, and they need a bit of incidental music for that. And because I'm fairly versatile in terms of style, then people can tell me to come up with something and I can get somewhere near. So that's the next project, and I've got to get on with that actually, because they need that in August. So that's going to be the next thing. And what for TV, it's like some dream pop type stuff, so not dance music at all. But that's, you know, the cool thing about that is it's kind of really refreshing to do something which isn't anything to do with dance music.
Yeah, at least you're not busy with the same stuff like every day.
That's right. And also you kind of come up with things that you wouldn't normally come up with, and forces you to do different things.
Yeah,
so
exactly. Yeah.
I enjoy that.
Yeah. So you're not only known as a producer, but you're also DJing. We are recording this interview in Amsterdam a day after a gig you did here. So how did the gig go?
We had great fun. It was really cool. It was like a small party, and these days there's people who are sort of my age and younger actually, but still really love the music and remember the music, and we still like to go out and hear and get and experience the vibe that you get at a party. So that's what it was last night. It was, the demographic was kind of older, but I'm cool with that now. Absolutely, kind of suits me.
As long as the vibe is good.
Oh, the vibe was lovely. Yeah. Absolutely. They're such nice people, So
I think was JD was on the lineup. Tom T.
He was, yeah.
Harry Lemon, I think.
Harry Lemon, yeah.
Nice. So yeah, for people that have never seen you live, what can they expect when they go to see one of your gigs?
Look, I have been watching John DJ for a long time now, and I try and make a sound which is kind of, we like our music, as I said, to be so soulful and groovy, and John's really does long mixes which make a lot of sense, sets up a momentum. That's what I try and do. Try to get the hypnotic thing going a little bit. Just try and get everybody on the same groove. Mm-hmm. That's what Bedrock is all about, really.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been watching John do for 30 years. I'm still not quite sure how he does what he does, but I try and get somewhere near if I can.
So what is the craziest or funniest thing that did ever happen during a gig? I know, like maybe, did you ever play with records, or was it?
I was never a vinyl.
No, okay. So then you didn't never put took the needle off from a record that was playing.
Oh man, what you see, the thing is, what happens now is that you've got your 2 decks, and I'll use 2 or 3 decks. 3 is it's useful to have a third for various reasons, but mostly I'm playing off 2 decks. And of course, if I've had a little bit too much vodka and orange, it has happened that I've paused the wrong deck. Also, those bloody things, they're really quite easy to nudge with your elbow, you know what I mean? And I can be there getting into it and, sort of doing a bit of turning of the knobs and, trying to listen to the next track coming up, and then all of a sudden, before you know where you are, you put your hands down and you've just stopped everything. So, no man, that is like, no, please. And it is something you'll never hear John do. Never.
He's like really like a perfectionist.
His concentration levels are pretty high. I'll give him that.
And he doesn't drink vodka and orange, I guess.
Well, I wouldn't say that.
So is there still something on your bucket list, music-wise?
I'd really like to do to write and produce a song which has a really big reach, because there is nothing like the buzz of when you do a tune and then you start to hear it in lots of different places. I can remember when we did For What You Dream Of a couple of years after that, I'd be walking around at home and I'd hear it coming out of shops, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that must be real.
Yeah, just I love all that. It's and the feeling that you've come up with something which is kind of everywhere, and I've had a little taste of that, and I want more.
Yeah. All right, well, thanks a lot for your time, and good luck with everything.
Thanks a lot.
All right, that was it. This week's vlog, my interview with Nick Muir and the story behind Heaven Sent by Bedrock. Nick, thanks a lot for your time, much appreciated. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed the vlog. If you did, make sure to give this video a like, leave a comment in the comment section below, and very important, make sure to subscribe. Also make sure to click the bell button, because then you will get a notification the next time a new vlog is online. And in case you missed it, I did another interview with Nick. That one is available on my channel already, and in that one he shared the story behind the Bedrock track For What You Dream Of, so make sure to check it out. Once again, thanks for watching, and until next time, bye bye.